Imagine standing on the edge of the Danube, the cold wind carrying whispers of a forgotten past. Beneath your feet, the earth hides the echoes of warriors who once defied empires. The Getae, a name that sounds both mysterious and powerful, were not mere footnotes in history. They were the architects of their own destiny, caught between the might of Persia, the ambition of Macedonia, and the relentless march of Rome. You might not find them in mainstream discussions about great ancient civilizations, but their legacy shaped an entire region. Herodotus called them the most courageous and just of all the Thracians. Strabo spoke of their religious fervor and philosophical depth. Yet, history often remembers the victors, not those who stood their ground before being eclipsed. So who were the Getae? How did they live, fight, and believe? And more importantly, why should we still talk about them today? Let's dive into their story, a tale of resilience, ambition, and fate. The Getae were an ancient people who lived in the Carpathian Danube region, stretching into the northern Balkan Peninsula and along the Black Sea coast. Their lands were strategically placed between the great powers of the ancient world, making them both a bridge and a battlefield. Unlike the more famous Greeks or Romans, the Getae did not leave behind grand cities or epic poems. Instead, their story is pieced together from foreign accounts, Herodotus, Strabo, Cassius Dio, all written by outsiders who saw them through the lens of their own empires. This is a common fate of those who fought, rather than wrote, history. But make no mistake, the Getae were no mere barbarians. They were fierce warriors, skilled horsemen, and deeply religious people. Their beliefs revolved around Zamolxis, a mysterious figure who was either a god, a prophet, or perhaps both. They believed in immortality, which made them fearless in battle, an advantage that terrified their enemies. Their importance in ancient history cannot be overstated. They were the link between the Thracians, the Scythians, and the Dacians. They resisted Persian invasions, clashed with Alexander the Great's successors, and ultimately laid the foundations for what would become the Dacian Kingdom under Burebista. Where did the Getae come from? Some theories suggest they were a branch of the larger Thracian group, while others believe they had a more distinct, localized origin. What is certain is that they were present in the region long before written history took note of them. The first recorded mention of the Getae comes from Herodotus, who describes their brave resistance against Darius I of Persia in 514 BC. Later, they appear in accounts of conflicts with the Macedonians and Romans, showing their resilience as a people constantly threatened by powerful neighbors. Their society was tribal, but not chaotic. Tribal unions formed under strong leaders, sometimes uniting into short-lived kingdoms. These structures allowed them to organize militarily and politically, making them formidable opponents on the battlefield. The Getae were deeply spiritual. Their belief in Zamolxis and the idea of an afterlife gave them a unique outlook. Death was merely a passage to another realm. This faith made them fearless warriors, something even the mighty Persian king Darius found unsettling. Economically, they thrived on agriculture, metallurgy, and trade. They were skilled in working gold and silver, leaving behind exquisite treasures that hint at a rich, sophisticated culture. Their pottery, often overshadowed by Greek craftsmanship, has a distinct style that tells its own story about their daily lives. Did you know that around 514 BC, a mighty Persian army of over 700,000 soldiers crossed the Danube in an attempt to conquer the lands of the Getae? Now imagine this. You're a Getae warrior, barefoot, wrapped in wool and leather, standing on a riverbank, watching what seems like the end of the world approach. You don't have polished armor or war elephants, but you do have something else, soul-burning defiance. That's how the first known confrontation between the Getae and a superpower began, with Darius I, king of the Achaemenid Empire, marching towards Europe like thunder. The Getae resisted fiercely. Described by Herodotus as the most brave and just of all Thracians, they refused to kneel to Darius, even knowing they would be crushed. And yet, even as their villages were torched, their name endured. The Persians passed, but the Getae remained. Alexander the Great, the man who made the known world tremble, also stepped into Getae territory. In 335 BC, he crossed the Danube with a massive force, hoping to make an example of them. But the Getae didn't hide. Instead, they lined up against the Macedonian war machine, poorly armed, vastly outnumbered, but unbroken. Alexander did manage to defeat them in battle, but even he was impressed by their courage and discipline. Instead of exterminating them, he chose to retreat. Why? Perhaps because he saw something dangerously familiar in them, his own iron will? After Alexander's death, chaos took over the Macedonian world. One of his successors, Lysimachus, tried to subdue the Getae once more. Big mistake. Not only was he defeated in 292 BC by the Getae king Dramycetes, but he was also captured. Now here's the twist: Dramycetes didn't execute him. Instead, he offered him a feast, dressed him in Getae clothes, and made a speech about humility, loyalty, and freedom. Lysimachus was so moved that he gave his daughter in marriage to the Getae king and left in peace. But the real storm was still to come. In the 1st century BC, as Rome cast its gaze over the Danube, the Getae were no longer a loose confederation of tribes. Under the leadership of Burebista, a charismatic and ruthless warlord priest, they were becoming something far more dangerous: unified. Burebista did what no one before him had dared. He united the Getae and Dacians into a single, disciplined, theocratic kingdom stretching from the Black Sea to the Pannonian Plain. He even burned down the vineyards to harden his people. Talk about dedication. Can you imagine the PR nightmare of banning wine in ancient Thrace? And when the Romans looked north, they didn't see scattered villages anymore. They saw an empire in the making. One Roman general whispered that Burebista's realm was the most powerful of all Thracians. This Dacian Kingdom would lay the groundwork for one of the greatest and most brutal clashes in Eastern Europe: Rome versus Dacia. The Getae, once seen as scattered warriors, were now the architects of a kingdom, one born in fire, raised in blood, and remembered in the stone of Roman ruins.